the inspirations behind the film that you had. So you mentioned before when we were talking out in the lobby about the influence of The Shining in particular. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, we were a bit inspired by The Shining actually, particularly regarding the final song. We sort of, there were two different ways to go in ending this film. One was sort of very downbeat and sour and sad, and the other way was something more humorous almost and upbeat. And on The Shining soundtrack there is a beautiful song called It's All Forgotten Now, which is, you can hear, which is played during the scene in the bathroom with the caretaker and Jack. And it was such a beautiful song, and the title was so perfect for the theme that we were working with. So I actually thought about trying to acquire it, because I thought it might be in public domain, but it turned out it was 5 years too early. So in the end we chose to write our own song, which is sort of inspired by an old kind of sort of romantic ballad from the sort of 40s.
Yeah, fantastic. So obviously the kind of content of the film was addressing kind of mental deterioration, I suppose, and issues like dementia and Alzheimer's. And you were again commenting that was inspired by an element of your personal life. So would you be able to elaborate on that, please?
Yes, and I would hand the microphone to Patrick also, who I think can say something. But yes, the main inspiration is my grandmother on my mother's side, who turned 100 years old this March. So she's still around, and she was very sort of clear, had a very clear mind up until maybe 2 years ago, when she started forgetting really fast. And what she described to me was almost something out of a horror film, which was she hallucinated about shadowy figures moving outside her bedroom window and that sort of stuff. And that always sort of stuck with me, because I'm very much a kind of horror guy, so I figured at some point it would be interesting to do some sort of story regarding dementia. I wasn't sure if it would be like drama, thriller, horror, but that was sort of the seed of everything. And then Patrick was the other sort of important part of it.
Yeah, so the whole process started like kind of in reverse, because I had this vacation. It's my summer cabin. So when I bought it like 3 years ago, I knew I wanted to shoot something there, but I didn't know what. So I was having my phone, I just take some pictures, and later on I showed Matthias this, and I told him, okay, we got a vacation here with something, I don't know what, and we got a cabin, and we got a woods, lots of woods, and we got a lake. So can we do something? And that was like the process.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, the setting was absolutely gorgeous, and I know that you said that there were some issues with the weather and the shooting, but I think it really added quite an intense atmosphere to everything, especially some of those landscape shots that you got from her kind of point of view. So I think I'll open it up now. We don't have too much time. So does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask these filmmakers? Yeah?
When you go into making a film like this, you go into it intending to make a short film, or do you kind of pen down the idea and go, okay, I can do this in so many days?
Well, if I understand the question correctly, it started out sort of like, I think the very first draft I wrote in more or less an afternoon. The thing is that both my father and my sister are working in healthcare, So the first thing I did was to contact them because I really wanted the conversation between the caregiver and the caretaker to feel real. You know, something that's asked them. My sister is sort of like a dementia nurse, so I asked her if this happened in real life. You know, if the caretaker would just, you know, go off somewhere, how would you guide them back to reality? So I really wanted that conversation to feel authentic for many different reasons. So I think we settled, because we only had one day to shoot this film, so it had to be sort of kind of short. So the script was like 7 pages, and through a lot of planning we managed to pull it off. But we had some weather issues. It's actually a blizzard going on right when they had their final conversation, so it was kind of tough, but yeah. Pull it off.
Oh, brilliant. Any other questions that anyone would like to ask? Yeah?
So your grandmother was still alive? Has she seen it?
I'm not sure. I did let her listen to the song because, as I said, we worked a lot. We put a lot of time into having the song feel just right, and it's sort of the tune of it is sort of like something that she grew up with. So when the song was done, I actually took it to her because she likes to sing and she's very sort of musical and it helps her remember. So when the song was finished and the mix was done, I brought it to her and I played it. And I thought it would be such a beautiful moment because no one had heard it before except me, Patrick, and obviously Johan, our composer. So I played it to her, and in the middle of it she says, "What is that noise?" So yeah, she saw the song was kind of noisy, but I will show it to her actually in a couple of weeks. But the problem is that she is really at this point sort of in the Shadowlands. She's really, well, she's my grandma, but it's sort of like she has reversed back to a very sort of child-like state, unfortunately. So it's really sad to see, but I will show it to her, and I hope that she somehow understands that she was the inspiration for the film.
That's lovely. So I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. If anyone else has anything they'd like to add. Oh, yeah.
What was your favourite part of making the film?
So the favorite part, I guess the whole process, I really enjoyed it. It was really like short amount of time that we got. We just had like a week before, we just sat them down in the cabin and settled angles and yeah, it was, I guess the whole process.
We should probably say something about the actors as well before we sort of sign off. The big challenge with this project was finding first a young actress and then an older actress that sort of had a kind of a resemblance. So the first thing we did was cast Ella, who plays Ellen, and she was really fine. She's sort of like kind of an up-and-coming actress in Sweden. And then we looked to try to find an older actress in her like 80s or 90s. And it proved really tricky until the Ibiza, who is the makeup artist of the film, said that my mom sort of looked like Ella a little bit. And it seemed like extremely lazy casting to cast like the makeup artist's mother. And the thing is that Margareta, who is the older Ellen, she's actually not that old. She's in her very early 60s, and she's very gung-ho and really energetic. So what we did was we did a makeup test. So we actually first we took, Ella, the main actress, was the base, and then we took Margareta, and first we aged her about 20 years, and then also put some latex on to sort of resemble Ella a little bit, so it would be sort of like, I think it was actually the scariest part of the film, because the whole body sort of could potentially just fall down if that effect didn't work. And we talked potentially about doing digital aging, but at the end of the day I felt that going sort of more old school was the right thing to do. So that was a challenge, but I think in the end we did the right decision to go for more practical effects.
Yeah, the practical effects look fantastic. I could really kind of struggle to tell whether it was two separate actresses or the same actress wearing makeup, or kind of the blend that you went with. And you really did an amazing job of kind of making them feel so connected to each other. So do we have maybe a final question from the audience? Oh, yeah.
Do you have any, what are you working on next? Do you have any other projects,
Great question.
Yeah, we do. Me and Patrick did a short film called Iris a couple of years ago, which is sort of like a supernatural thriller, which I have developed into a feature-length screenplay, which will. The original, the short film is in Swedish, but probably this one will. I've written it to take place in an American setting, and hopefully we will shoot it in Oregon next year, hopefully. But this still detail about financing and that sort of stuff. But yeah, so we have some other project as well. So we'll see what will come of it.
So something that I was actually very curious about, because so many of the films that are in the programme were centred around women and women's experiences. I was wondering whether it was a kind of conscious choice on your part to cast a woman specifically in the lead role, or whether that was something that kind of organically occurred. Because I'm aware that with Waking Up, that's very much based on kind of personal reasons. But I was wondering, with The Killer Outside, whether that might be for something more thematic.
With The Killer Outside, I actually thought about casting it as a male first. But there's just something more vulnerable about a woman being on her own than there isn't with a man. So I think for horror purposes, it just works better with a woman. A producer weren't 100% on the ball on the day what we were shooting, and we ended up moving on from the first location before we shot what we needed. So I had to change the story on the fly to make it work. So I had like 10 minutes of keeping my shit together while everybody was falling apart, and just like, okay, we're doing this. So that was kind of scary, but we managed it.
That's great that everything kind of came together despite everything. And I am curious as well about your kind of inspirations behind the film, whether that is kind of in other films or elsewhere, because when I was watching the film initially, I got a very strong kind of Gerald's Game feeling from it. That was something that I felt that was kind of a potential reference point, kind of maybe unintentionally, that I think is quite interesting. So I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Very unintentional, because I've not seen Gerald's Game. I've read the book, but I've not seen the film. Inspiration-wise, I think I've always been interested in stories that are kind of like twisting mentally what's going on, and we're not sure which way and what reality is. I've always been really intrigued by the nature of reality on the whole, and how much we truly know and can actually accept about our own reality. So I've always been interested in playing with those sort of ideas. Yeah.
Brilliant. So do we have any questions for Joe from the audience? Yeah?
The art direction of the actual, just pictures. My uncle, who's an art artist, and I actually cast the lead actor and got his photo, and I kind of said, just send my uncle the job. I said, look, they all want to look a little bit like him, a bit distorted, and we just got on with it. Yeah.
Did you have to get the rights for the
That is a great question. The answer is no. I just got him to sing it. Apparently, the guy who I was involved in the legal side of that said that as long as he didn't sing it for over, I think it was 15 seconds, I could use it. I don't know how true that is. I still might get sued yet. I don't know.
I think it's always good for kind of smaller filmmakers to be aware of these potential loopholes and kind of opportunities to use of a media like that. Do we have any other questions for Joe? Yeah?
So I know you said you wanted it to be a bit vague on exactly which where reality is turning, but if you have like a set line in mind to base it on, and then twist out points as the story went along, or do you always have it intended to always write it as one thing's happening, or now another thing's happening, now another thing's happening?
So I knew whether what was going on was real or not, and I wrote it one way, that knowing it was all one way, and I just wrote in the bits that would misdirect. Yeah. So in my imagination, how I wrote it is that it was real. The alien was real. It was messing with her head. So then I wrote all the misdirects that made you think she were insane in there.
Brilliant. Any other questions? Any final questions? Yeah?
Hi, how did you come up with the look of the alien? Because it's not quite extraterrestrial, but not quite human. So how did you decide on that?
I casted an actor friend who had a weird shaped head. That was it. No, my original casting, I had a guy who was very, very bizarre looking, and but he pulled out in the end. He got a feature film in the diary, and originally I wanted to do something super alien, but the budget wouldn't allow. So my friend who's Gareth, who plays the alien guy, he's got quite a weird shaped head anyway. And the colourist actually manipulated it in the grade and messed around with the frame a little bit just to elongate his head and make him look a little bit weirder.
Well, I'm sure he was happy that they messed with him a little further and it wasn't purely his own physique that was inspiring so much terror. I think we had another question from over here. Yeah?
Will you tell us what the original plan was that you had before you had to change it on the fly?
Sure, so I had when it was the scene where she's talking to the doctor at first and the paintbrushes are all there, she was meant to have another scene in there that was towards the end, and when she runs out of the house, she's meant to run from that area after realising that the aliens messed up all her art supplies and ripped things down, and we missed that bit. So on the fly I thought, we need to see this artwork all together like it's been tampered with. How do I do that? So I just put all the artwork on a board and stuck it outside the door and had her run into it instead.
Brilliant. And I think I'll just finish up now by asking what you'll be doing in the future.
So I've done another proof of concept short. This is a proof of concept short as well. Sort of the feature version of this film is currently with a guy called Ed King, who's the producer on a film called His House. I don't know if you've seen that excellent horror film. I think it's on Netflix as well currently. So he's kind of producing that, but we haven't got a budget for that yet. I'm shooting a feature film in the spring that's crime comedy, which I've done a proof of concept for recently, and I've got finance for that, and should be shooting that in the spring. I've got a TV series as well that's currently with Channel 4, it's comedy as well, which is more I have done horror or comedy, I don't seem to do anything in between. So yeah, that's the plan.
That's fantastic to hear. So lots of stuff in the works then. That's great. Right, so I think we have to finish up now. So let's just have a round of applause for the fantastic filmmakers here.